Hello learner, welcome. Today I want to take you through English. My name is Teacher Benson, as you can see on the screen. We have looked at different topics in English, question tags, sentence patterns, and all that. And today I want us to discuss something different, that is question formation. In other words, we are simply asking ourselves, how are we able to form a question from a statement given? Question formation, it is a skill that it's important in our day-to-day lives as far as communication is concerned, in that we should be able to form correct questions using the correct method without making the simple common mistakes that we do make, we as human beings. And therefore, by the end of the lesson, learner, you should be able to form a question for a given statement using a correct method based on the methods we are going to discuss today with you. Hope you are ready. Let's go through together. So how do we form questions if you have been given a statement? Or how do we form questions if you have been given statements? Different statements have different questions, and therefore one statement has got its own question. Now, how do we form the question, therefore, for given statements? Now, the first method, we want to look at the inversion method as a way of forming questions to statements. Inversion method. Inversion method, it simply means change of a word order. Any sentence has got its own order. That is the subject-verb agreement in English. That a good sentence that starts with a subject, it must be followed by a verb, and at the end, there must be an object. But now in this method, we are saying that we are now changing the subject with its verb. And more so, this verb is not the main verb. The verb that changes its position with the subject is mostly the modal verbs, or rather sometimes refer to them as modal auxiliary verbs. And as you can see, that in this method, the modal verb in the sentence comes before the subject. The modal verb in the sentence comes before the subject. And some of the common modal verbs used in sentences, they include the following. We have the had, as you can see, we have the have, we have has, we have shall, we have should, and so on. Will, are, were, was, is, all those are auxiliary verbs. And they are the ones that mostly do change and shift position. They take the position of a subject. So it comes first before the subject. Let's look at the example sentences, what we are talking about, what it means. Look at our example here. There is a statement, and in our statement, I have indicated where there is S, it simply represents the subject, and where there is V, it represents the verb. Therefore, there is a statement which reads, she is a nurse. She is a nurse. As you can look at it, she is a subject of the sentence. Is the verb. In fact, is the main verb now. And therefore, she is a nurse. Learner, how do we form a question for this statement? And what is going to be the question for this statement at the same time? I hope you have tried. Looking at what you have done as an example, what is written as an example, you find she is a nurse. If you want to ask the question for the same statement, will be, is she a nurse? Is she a nurse? So you find is, they have changed position with the she. So the is comes before the she. Then another statement is here, using a different pronoun. The statement reads, you have seen it. You have seen it. You can see in our sentence have, which is a modal verb, it will change position with you, which is our subject of the statement. Therefore, what do you think is going to be the question for this statement? You have seen it. I hope you have said, have you seen it? And that is the question for our statement. Now, can you try this on your own and see if you are able to form a correct question for the statement I'm going to read to you. They must go to bed now. They must go to bed now. What do you think is this question for that statement? They must go to bed now. I hope you have tried on your own, and I hope you have asked the question as follows: must they go to bed now? And at the end, punctuation, correct punctuation is very important. That is question mark. They is the subject, must is our modal auxiliary verb, and therefore we start with the modal auxiliary verb. That is, must they go to bed now? That is how it should be. And maybe the last one can be, they were washing clothes. They were washing clothes. That's our statement. What do you think is the question for that statement? I hope you have said, were they washing clothes? Were they washing clothes? So I believe you are now able to identify the subject and the verb, and then how you are able to change the order. Let's also look at the second method, how to form questions. The second method, as you can see, it includes forming questions using the different forms of the do verb, the different forms of the do. And do, it exists in different forms. That is, it exists in the form of do itself, does, and did. Then when do we use these different forms? For us to be able to form correct questions for statements in these forms, it will depend with the tense. Let's look at when do we use do and does to form questions for given statements. In present simple tense, as you can see, in present simple tense, we use do and does to form questions. In other words, what are you saying? That if a statement does not have a modal auxiliary verb, just like in question tag where a statement does not have a helping verb, is the same way here. When the statement does not have a helping verb or the modal auxiliary verb, then we are now introducing the do form. Now, in the present simple tense, we introduce do and does. In present simple tense, we use do and does to form questions for given statements. For example, look at our statement. Our statement says, you know how to milk cows. You know how to milk cows. You find that in our statement, we just have our subject, which is you, our main verb, which is no, and we are not having any modal auxiliary verb in the statement. But we have to form a question for that statement. How do we form a question then? If someone tells you, you know how to milk cows, how do you form a question for that statement? Try it on your own and tell us the answer. Good. I hope you have tried. And the question should be similar to ours there. You know how to milk cows. The question should be, do you know how to milk cows? Do you know how to milk cows? I hope you have that similar kind of a question for that statement. Good. Another statement is, the bus leaves at 6 o'clock. What do you think is going to be the question for that statement? Try it on your own and tell us the answer, please. Good. I hope you have said that, does the bus leave at 6 o'clock? Does the bus leave at 6 o'clock? So you find that where we don't have a helping or a modal auxiliary verb, we are going to introduce the do and does as long as the statement is in the present simple tense. Then when do we use did as a form of do when forming questions for statements? In past simple tense, we use did form to form questions. That means if it is in the past tense, we are using the did form. And if it is in the present simple tense, we are using the do and does form. Look at the example in the past simple tense. Here is a statement, and it reads, I hope you have read it. He bought a new car. He bought a new car. What do you think is going to be the question to that statement? Good. I hope you have said, did he buy a new car? Did he buy a new car? That's good. And you find in that statement, in the statement we had, he bought a new car. The main verb bought, when you're asking the question, it goes back to its present. That is, bought changes to buy. Did he buy a new car? The next statement reads, she sang nicely. She sang nicely. What do you think is the question to that statement? Good. I hope you have said, did she sing nicely? So you see, sang has gone back to sing. Sang changes back to sing, but still referring in the past. So let's take note of that. So let's always remember that we use did form to form questions for statements in the past simple. And then in the process of forming question, any verb that comes after did will always be in its present simple form. Now, let's look at the third way of forming questions to statements. The third way of forming questions to statements. The third way of forming questions to statements involves using the WH interrogatives. The WH interrogatives in this case, they include the following. As you can see, as they are listed, we have the who, we have what, we have why, we have when, we have whose, and lastly we have the how. How as the unique one. So all those are interrogatives. They help when we are asking questions. So in this case, we don't have the helping verb, neither are we required to have the do, to use the do form, but we are simply going directly and forming the question. Now, for example, let's look at the example sentences. Look at those sentence one. Look at those sentences. Who broke the window? You want to know who broke the window. Which interrogative? Who. What did the teacher say? Why have you come late? When did you come? Whose phone is this? Where are you going? And how did you manage to escape? All these are interrogatives, and they are used differently depending on what you are looking for in that statement, or when you are in that statement, sorry. Therefore, let's use them correctly. And before we forget that this interrogative, when you are forming questions, they should always come at the beginning of your question, not at the end. For example, what did the teacher say? It is wrong to start saying what we normally hear, commonly asked with our colleagues or our friends where we are, that the teacher said what? That is wrong. When did you come? You came when? That is wrong. Whose phone is this? This phone is for who? No. Interrogatives should always come at the beginning of a sentence, not at any part of a sentence. And whenever it's used at the beginning, it's no longer a sentence, just a sentence, but it's a question. It is a question, and therefore at the end, it should be punctuated with a question mark. And lastly,